Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to kick things off today with a pretty wild question. What if Batman's greatest weapon wasn't a batarang or some high-tech gadget, but a philosophical truth bomb? A truth so powerful it could accidentally break the minds of his own friends.
Okay, so let's really dive into this. I mean, this is a question that's been up the heart of comics for decades. You're up against beings who can literally just rewrite the laws of physics. What do? How do you possibly fight back? And the answer, as it turns out, has nothing to do with throwing a harder punch.
And this sets the stage for a totally different kind of battle. We're not talking about a brawl on the streets of Gotham anymore. We're talking about a war fought in the source code of reality itself. See, you're not attacking the person, you're attacking the concepts that make them real in the first place.
So to really get how this works, let's imagine a scenario. A huge, climactic battle against Lex Luthor that just goes horribly, philosophically wrong. And in the process, Batman accidentally unravels the entire Justice League.
Now you're probably thinking, how is that even possible? Well, to understand it, we have to meet a brand new kind of Batman. He's moved way beyond being the detective who works inside the rules of reality. He's become something else, something we're going to call an active projector. He's not just playing the game, he's learned how to rewrite the rules.
And that's the absolute key here. This Batman doesn't just play by the rules anymore. Nope, he's figured out how to get into the back end, the source code, and actually rewrite it. He gets that the world isn't just something to be observed, it's something he can actively shape, or even break.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. Rewriting reality sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But what's fascinating is that this whole idea is built on a really old philosophical concept. The idea that the world you see and experience isn't necessarily the world as it truly is. And that brings us to the philosopher Immanuel Kant. He kicked off what's called a Copernican revolution for the mind. He basically argued that our minds aren't just these passive mirrors, just reflecting what's out there. No way. The mind is an active agent. It's like a projector that literally constructs the reality we perceive around us. So how does the mind even do that? Well, you can think of it like your computer's operating system. It has these three core tools it uses: space, time, and causality. It takes all this raw, chaotic sensory data that's flooding in and uses those tools to organize it all into the structured, predictable world we all know and live in.
And this here perfectly illustrates Kant's big idea, his great divide. On one side, you've got the phenomenal world. Just think of it like the GUI, the graphical user interface of reality. It's the world of appearances we can see and touch. But on the other side, you've got the noumenal world. That's the source code, the deep-down reality as it is, which we can never, ever see directly.
So this movie projector analogy is just perfect for tying it all together. The true, unknowable reality, what another philosopher, Schopenhauer, called the will, that's the raw electricity powering the whole show. Your mind, that's the projector. And the world we actually experience, with all its heroes and villains, that's just the movie being projected onto the screen. It's coherent, sure, but it's totally constructed.
All right, so now that we have this whole philosophical framework set up, now we can finally understand how Batman's ultimate weapon actually works. And, more importantly, why it turns out to be so unbelievably catastrophic for his own team. Okay, picture this. The final battle with Luthor. Batman unleashes his new weapon. It's a psychic broadcast, a truth bomb designed to completely neutralize Luthor's aggression by showing him what it really is, just this futile, meaningless struggle born from his own insecurity. This isn't a punch, it's a philosophical takedown.
But, and this is the fatal flaw, this broadcast isn't a sniper rifle. It's a bomb. It's a shockwave. And by declaring that all struggle is just a meaningless, self-imposed illusion, it doesn't just hit the villain, it also hits the heroes. It dissolves the very ideas, the very illusions that give them their power.
Let's start with Wonder Woman. Her bracelets are indestructible because of a divine mandate, right? Well, this truth bomb exposes that mandate for what it is, a powerful story, a philosophical construct. And under the crushing weight of this new reality, that concept just evaporates. Her bracelets stop being these mythic, indestructible artifacts and become just metal, and they shatter.
Now, for Superman, it's even worse. It's way more insidious. The attack doesn't even try to pierce his skin. It can't. Instead, it attacks the concept of his invulnerability. It burns away the idea of his potential to resist.
The whole metaphysical necessity of being the man of tomorrow gets stripped away, and all that's left is a biological creature, suddenly terrifyingly vulnerable to plain old physics.
And then you've got Green Lantern. The heroic idea of willpower that powers his ring gets ripped away. What's left? What's behind that comforting green light of courage? It's the horrifying truth of what Schopenhauer called the will. Not some noble determination, but a blind, chaotic red energy, a force of pure, meaningless striving. So Hal Jordan looks into his ring, and he doesn't see courage anymore. He sees past that illusion. He sees the raw source code of reality, this blind, insatiable, striving force. And in that one horrifying instant, he realizes his power, his willpower, comes from the exact same engine that drives all the suffering and tragedy in the universe. And just like that, his will collapses.
And so, the battle ends. But not with a bang, not with a victory parade. It ends with this terrifying, silent stillness. It's a win that looks and feels exactly like a complete and utter defeat.
I mean, Batman's weapon worked on Luthor perfectly. It froze him in this psychic stasis, proved that his grand plans for conquest were completely irrelevant. But the collateral damage? He accidentally convinced his own friends that their heroism, their righteous anger, was also just a pitiable, meaningless weakness.
So what the world sees is the Justice League, just standing there, on the battlefield. They're physically fine, not a scratch on them. But they're metaphysically hollowed out. They've been exposed. They're not gods anymore. They're empty shells, because the stories that made them who they are have just been completely erased.
Let's go back to that movie projector analogy one last time. In his attempt to stop the villain in the movie, Batman didn't just stop the film, he went to the fuse box and cut the power to the entire theater.
He stopped the villain from hurting the heroes, for sure, but he also turned off the heroes. He saved them from the story, but he also erased them from the story. They're not characters on a screen anymore. They're just a blank white canvas hanging in a dark, silent room.
And that leaves us with one last, really chilling question to think about. What happens when the story that holds up reality is turned off? If our heroes are only as real as the concepts that define them, what's left when a terrible truth burns all those concepts away?